welcome class to an explanation of how to complete some practice problems regarding the impairment of loans from both a lender side and a borrower side. So our problem number one, we have chiggers with some financial problems. They take out a loan for $500,000, interest rate 6%. Made 24 payments and then 10 more, usually on time, but then no payments have been made since. So we're now in August, so that means that there has been 7 months of without a payment, which means interest has been being added to the loan amount during that time. So we're going to look at options. So Chiggers is going to make an offer to the bank. Some modifications of the loan term, they may be able to pay off some of the loan. So they offer to pay $3,000 per month starting on August 1st for 10 years. All right, so that is going to be a change in the terms of the loan. So let's consider what that would look like from Leola's standpoint as well as Chigger's standpoint. Before we can do anything too far, we need to get some more information. We need to know what the original payment would be on this loan. To do that, we use our payment function in Excel, and we do the following. We figure out we know the principal, the number of payments, and the interest rate. So we get a payment of $5,551.03. So clearly the $3,000 is definitely a change in the terms. So the next thing we need to do is figure out how much is actually owed on the loan. We made lots of payments, so obviously it's not still $500,000. So we create an amortization table here using Excel, and we come down here till we've reached payment number 34 and calculate that the amount that is still owed on the loan is $383. We add the interest for 7 months and we get $397,044. So the first thing you have to do with any loan is you have to know how much it is currently on the carrying amount on the books. So that it should be at this point the same on both Chiggers and Leola Bank. So Leola shows it as a receivable, Chigger shows it as a payable. So if you're looking at it from Chigger's standpoint, you consider the future undiscounted cash flows. So $360,000 is what they're going to pay, $3,000 a month for 120 months without applying present value at all. And you compare that to what they have as the loan amount. And you see that the undiscounted cash flows are lower. That means that Chiggers records a gain on this restructuring. That means that they're going to debit the loan payable and credit gain on their financial statements. That has another implication, and that is once you have a gain, if the borrower records a gain on the restructuring, then there is no interest on any subsequent payments. So the $3,000 that they pay is all principal. So you're going to debit the loan payable and credit cash for each of those payments. Now, things do not mirror that on the lender side. On the lender side, you go right to considering the present value of the future cash flows. So if you accept the $3,000 a month for the next 120 months, what's the present value of that? We can use our present value function in Excel, 6%, 120 payments, $3,000, and we get a present value of $270,220. We compare that to the loan amount, and we have a loss. It will always be a loss for the lender because the only time that there's going to be a change in the terms, it will be more favorable to the borrower and less favorable to the lender. That's the only way legally they can change the terms. So they have a loss of the difference of 126,823. From there on, they need to record the payments they receive. However, once they have made that loss, they calculate everything using the original interest rate. And by the way, the present value of those payments is also done at the original interest rate. So the cash is $3,000. They're going to receive interest at 6% on the balance of the loan, the new balance, which is lower, the $270. And then the rest goes to note receivable. The second month, I should say, they are going to subtract the note, how much they paid off in the first one, from the $270, and calculate the interest based on that new amount. And that's going to record as interest revenue. So that's going to go down each time going forward. So you see, the two sides are very different. One side is recording a gain, one is a loss, and they're not the same amount. And one is recording payments with no interest, the other is recording interest revenue at 6%. So if we go to the second option, make a new offer, they offer 4%. And say that we will restructure it, but not quite as much as the other one. So we're going to recalculate our payments at a 4% rate on the original amount. And that payment would be $39.21 or 54 cents. So we multiply that by the number of payments, 120. Undiscounted cash flows from Chigger's standpoint, their cash flows are more than the original loan amount, therefore there is no gain on the restructuring for Chigger's. And they're going to record their payments going forward at 4%, because that's what we use to calculate the payment. So they're going to count for payments at 4%. However, at the bank side, they're going to again take the present value of those future cash flows. The future cash flows is $39.20.54 a month. Take the present value, but use the old interest rate, the original interest rate of 6. Figure out that present value, compare it to the original loan amount, and they have a loss. So even though there's no gain on the lender side, the borrower side, there is a loss on impairment for the bank. All right. So they're going to record a loss. They're going to debit loss and credit note receivable. Now for the subsequent payments, the lender is going to be using the 6% interest revenue on the new balance. So that's how we get the interest revenue here. The rest goes to note receivable. For the borrower, they're using the 4%. So their payment is here, cash, interest expense, calculated at 4% of the original balance. Because from their standpoint, the balance hasn't changed because there was no gain. So only if there's a gain do you change the original amount on the balance sheet. So that's how you would look at that problem from both sides, the lender and the borrower.